the thing is with these social services, whether it be your shelters, your police work, your fire department, ambulance work, a lot of things tie in. Bay Bridge Clubhouse ties in, the clubhouse world ties in. And there are a lot of people with things to say about the social problems that our society is up against, but there doesn't seem to be a macro interest in serious discussions by people in the professions and by people, the public, and of course by people who are, as I am, clients. So it'd be nice if we had a clubhouse in Provincetown. Here I have something for a little shop, the Nut House. Cute. I think I've been there. I think I bought a product there once a couple of years ago. I don't know if it's still there, but these are what these clubhouses are considered by some people. But I consider the clubhouse to be the place of 1,000 daily victories. I just get so inspired by the clubhouse world when things are running properly. I need to get more into that. So that would be a good venue for design of the social services in a way that mitigates the so-called welfare state. I'm of the mind that we need to do the drug testing for people and et cetera, you know. So we don't really have a good forum here. And don't you think we need something, I could pitch in on that, a good consortium of thinkers for social problems, for the Phragmites. Would have different focuses from time to time. And I would like to watch on TV people discussing these issues who have had previous discussions not only with each other, but they've been weeded out to include basically your cream of the crop, having a discussion. Because I don't know about you, but I don't want to waste my time listening to somebody babble about something that, you know, something they're not bringing something to the table. Now it's going to rain. So quality would be kind of nice to have, but you know, how do you do that? You'd have to have a moderator, and you'd have to have some competition and some voting to see who makes it in, who makes the, you know, who makes the A team and the B team and the C team on some of these issues. And in that way, I think, and I've got this written up in some other place too, in that way you could attract professionals that are really valuable with their opinions and can really design better systems than what we have now. The reason I say that is because years ago on Fish Folk, we had some fishermen who were rabid and who drove out some of the professionals. And they don't want to be part of some rabid, emotional-based discussion. They want to make tracks, you know, they want to get something done, and they can't get things done if there's breakdowns and everything disintegrates. So this consortium of thinkers would have to have a few different levels, A, B, and C. Does that make sense? So as I was saying, at one of these meetings, I think we had a meeting yesterday, the day before, this business of, in the social services, of we'll help you help yourself. Okay, that's getting pretty old, because a lot of these people that they're saying, okay, we'll help you help yourself, you know. Well, a lot of people are not intending to help themselves, and may be intending to be self-destructing, self-medicate. I hate that term, self-medicate. I suppose there is a grain of truth to it. I more or less Used to like to have a beer once in a while, but I've never had the psych meds, you know, unlike just about everybody that goes to the clubhouse world. And I rattled off my diagnoses to my new therapist, who I like. And I said, well, let me see if I can do this. Delusions of grandeur, delusions of a jealous nature, homicidal, and then that was going in at Taunton State Hospital, and that's what they tried to get me on, and I argued that in court, and shrink disagreed with that, and the shrink argued for just diagnosing me with bipolar. So bipolar and hypomanic, that's what they, I guess, could make stick. You can say anybody's bipolar, basically, can't you? Did you have a bad mood? You know, it's kind of absurd. I've always thought these psych people were absurd, frankly. But, you know, I suppose they are doctors, but I have learned that these professions tend to have a little bit of a credibility problem. So that's tea tree oil for my toenail fungus. Let's see. So the we'll help you help yourself. I mean, this gets really old. I've been watching this for years. And then the worst thing of it is, you know, you truly mentally ill people are getting lumped into the same bushel basket with your tail chasers and your refuseniks and your problem people with the discipline issues. And, well, maybe you have a reason to drink and do drugs and all, but I'm not with that. You know, I mean, those are excuses, I suppose. And I think when we allow that to pass and encourage that, you just open the barn door, really. You open the floodgates. Oh, geez, you know. You see, the public taxpayer dollar does not grow on a tree. And when you're taking tax money and using it for all these ancillary people helping people, you know, everyone's honorable, you know, all the money is there for you. I'm just not with that. Legitimately disabled people should be helped and should have the red carpet. Definitely. But people who have fried themselves on drugs and alcohol, okay, well, these are the discipline cases. And I don't think they deserve, or we deserve, if I'm in that boat, because as you know, I did have a vehicular homicide under my belt in 1975, so I'm one of the perpetrators speaking here. So let's just say, if you deserve the red carpet, I think you should have it. But if you don't deserve it in the social services world, then you should not have it. That's why I've designed in Job and Bunk as a corollary program that would work with your clubhouses. And the Job and Bunk would be basically, as it sounds, you know, J and B, Job and Bunk. And that would help to stabilize people and maybe a permanent location for some people. That wouldn't be necessarily a bad thing. But I believe in the vagrancy laws, and I know that they were abused, but I still do believe in them. In the old days, I think they were used against black people, and I think that's probably why they got repealed. However, the humane way to go is to bring back the vagrancy laws within limitations. And the people that are running around littering, drunk, stinking, and doing the drugs, you know, I'm sorry. Hyannis is getting ruined. And, you know, Hyannis puts up a little struggle here and there, but, you know, why Hyannis is the mecca for all this baloney? You know, I suppose that's where the services, this is where we put up with nonsense. Hyannis. I call it the land of bugs and drugs. I don't think we're doing a service for truly disabled people, legitimately disabled people, with these attitudes that we'll help you help yourself. You know, and that carried to an extreme is one of our problems. And I was redesigning something that is, you know, because these social services are always interested in what they can do to publicize, let people know, all right, what the services are that they're providing. So I thought a screened-in tutorial desk with the headphones, and you can locate these in here and there, you know, for the purposes of tutoring people on what's available as far as the agencies. And agencies need to sell their services and advertise, and clients or what have you, we need to kind of be educated and, you know, pass some tutorials. That might be good. But there's another leg that's missing. If we want to be solid with this kind of thing, we have to have the clients, people who are being cared for one reason or another, whether it's mental illness, legitimate or discipline cases, etc. We need to have personal web pages, and I've got this written up quite in quite detail. It would be a several levels of security for your web page, and that way you wouldn't be running around necessarily. I'm recently married 4 months plus ago, and I think we've probably been to 40 or 50 meetings just to adjust. Now, this wouldn't be the case if it were a web page based system, and probably you could eliminate 3/4 of unnecessary bureaucrats, you know, and spend that money on cohogs. I don't care. But there's a lot of unnecessary waste in the government, as we all know. But now people should be, I think, required to have a web page, and that web page can be very secure, or it can have levels of security. It would be someplace where Social Security could go and post and look at, where you could post, let's say with your advocate, post what your income is and your jobs and what you're doing. It would just be a good reference point so that your rent can be readjusted, your food stamps can be readjusted. So we really do need that, the 3 legs of, one of the legs would be this business of having a reference page, a web page for clients. The other would be good information systems, which would be these shared tutorial web page systems, such that if you had an answer, you could ask the answer, and then you could get an answer back on the video screen. In other words, it's like the mail. Okay, check your mail. You could be doing, you know, video mailing with people that are in the know and government people. It would be a great savings of time and effort and money and gas and wear and tear on your shoes and everything else. But okay, so that's big. That's a big part of the town nurse-based system. These new social services systems that I'm redesigning are that we have to have good information systems, whether it be the headphones and the screen for services, or to interact with your web page and government providers or churches or any other provider. The vagrancy laws need to be reconsidered for social services. So there's a lot of good services that are being provided by agencies. However, I would like to see more churches involved with volunteer help as in the old days, but amend it and reform it, and test and train, ABC 1, 2, 3, test and train. That's one of my projects, so that people test into their positions. And then, of course, some overlap with your ambulance workers, perhaps being part-time clubhouse workers, so that the community can integrate in a low-budget way. And we are spending probably 60 to 80% overspending in social services right now. As I have said before on the shows, we, the poor and disabled, are supporting a major bureaucracy of highly paid, overpaid. That's debatable. I'd say overpaid and highly paid both. Town volunteers in localized systems can work just fine. I think much better. I think the quality would improve and the money being spent would go down with the town nurse-based system, which is very important, because as our country is getting squeezed, let's say, we are in need of budget-friendly, but yet effective and compassionate and humane social services. So that's what I'm doing as your welfare bum of Hyannis, collecting a Social Security check. I'm happy to serve you in this capacity, but I do feel sorry for you, in a way, the voter, because of the stigma it puts on voters to have people like me who are activists, political activists, getting slammed while the voter just kind of watches. It kind of stigmatizes the voter and the citizen as kind of sappish in nature, which I do know that's true. And it's a shame. America has gone downhill in that respect, but it is true. But the complexity, I think, can be blamed, if you want to blame something. And then the money in politics with the newspapers, let's say, taken over by big money interests, and mixing what you call political capital, as George W. Bush called it. He says, I'm elected now, I have the political capital. Well, he didn't know how truthful he was being. And he beat Kerry. And we didn't get to have Dean run. So who's going to run, I wonder, this time around? Who's going to be allowed to run by the establishment? It's either going to be Jeb Bush and Hillary Clinton, who I think the big money people have these two people picked. Either one would be fine with them. They're cookie-cutter establishment figures. They've got multi-years as public servants as these archetypal party figures. The rich aren't going to get any surprises out of these two. However, now, I would like to see, Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump face off in the finals. That would be fun. And then we wouldn't be scoffing at Mr. Trump, would we? It's easy to scoff, isn't it? You're scoffing at someone with a certain amount of credibility there, not just poor Steve Scannell, the ditch digger, the fisherman. I mean, this guy's got some credibility. Donald Trump, he's made some money. He's a showman. He's a bit of a character. We have a couple things in common. But let's say I talk about a blimp with legs to build a system that nobody knows anything about. Well, is that my credibility issue? Do I have a credibility issue? Would you like to scoff? Oh, a blimp building a pipe. Ridiculous. So it's easy to scoff. If a few people get on board with this idea, then maybe the idea will gain legs, as they say. I think people have a fearful resignation mixed with a confused loyalty. We think we have a two-party system, but we really don't. We have a three-party system. The third party is the money in both parties. Represents a third party. And it's true that three parties don't work and two parties do. Because when you have two parties, legitimate parties, that are working to work things out, we can work it out. The money people would, let's say, wouldn't be allowed to rule the roost on both and win the day. It would be a battle of the middle, and the middle ground people would win the day. And all sorts of ideas would be on the table. However, that's not to say that there aren't lots of political kooks out there. And it's fun to scoff. And it's hard to make it if you are labeled as such. But, as I've said before, those are the hard knocks. Now, Donald Trump, easy to scoff at him, but let's say you're a Republican or I'm a Republican. Donald Trump has a good following of Republicans who are sick and tired of the tone of the establishment Republicans. Say we, a lot of us that are for a person like Trump or Perot, we're not so impressed with the establishment candidates who make light of the illegal immigration or who make light of the debt and brush aside most of the issues that are so important to middle ground people. People in this country are living in fear of the establishment monster. That is the truth. And your activists, such as myself, it's not fertile ground for the activist. So first of all, do we know full well that we're getting ripped off politically? Wouldn't it be better to have Trump versus Bernie, Donald Trump versus Bernie Sanders, than, let's say, two of the party picks, two of the party faithful picks? And the two that are shaping up are really more, it looks more like a monarchy than anything else, because, the Clintons and the Bushes, let's say, have had their share of going along with the great American ripoff, or as I call it, the conspiracy to milk America. So will we bless the two party hack ripoffs, or are we corrupt, or are we dumb? Do we know? If you meet a guy on Main Street and you say to him, hey, what'd you do? You gave away your money to that dirty loafer who's hitting you up 20 times already, and you gave him your money? What's your problem? Are you dumb or something? No, they're just intimidated. We America's intimidated and fearful because both parties have decided to take the money. I think that's a common sentiment. We got to get the money out of politics, and I was working on that, and I have a previous show with my Get Money Out amendment. All right, here's a tripe idea: the overnight car loader. Cars go on crossways onto a wide gauge rail, hopefully down the road, 10-foot gauge. So if I'm driving down to Florida, I can get on board, let's say, anywhere between Providence and Boston or up in Maine. You get on board somewhere along 95 and you drive on board, and it would be kind of like a sleeper train that would be larger than a normal. Try going through New York. I Just can't get over it. Route 95 going through New York. That is my number one peeve. Route 95 could pilot this, but it could be nationwide. So you could bring on a trailer and you could rent a pickup truck, you know, somewhere else. Could get on at 11 or 12 or 1 or 2 a.m., let's say, and then park your car or park your trailer and then ride south and get into the sleeper, and you get off in anywhere from D.C., North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, wherever you want to get off, Florida. And that way traveling would be a little bit more enjoyable than trying to go through New York. How crazy is that? Trying to get through New York on Route 95. And you're paying $14 plus another $1.75 for that punishment. You're paying for punishment. So that's like we're worshiping some kind of a cross between the mafia and Wall Street here, because they don't deserve that money. Are you kidding me? They're getting that money and they're punishing us at the same time just to travel. If you're going from Massachusetts to Florida, I can remember driving a tractor trailer. Last time I was going through there, it was a $30. It's probably way up there now. That was a while ago. So the goal of the train would be to have an average speed of maybe 80 to 120, depending on how, you know, how much money we wanted to spend. And then you wouldn't stop. You'd load your people and detach cars, and then the cars would become the cars would go off and get unloaded and then load and get back on. So that's the future, things like that. Designing bridges, that's fun. Reverse A-frame. This is for Route 95 to get through New York. I'd like to design the road to get through New York. I don't want New Yorkers doing this work. New Yorkers have no credibility as far as I'm concerned, pulling a stunt like charging people the money they charge just to travel on the 22 or 23 miles just to get through New York. It's a living hell. And I'd like for us to get up on top of this issue and put an end to that. That's my number one issue. That's why I'm designing a bridge. Reverse A-frame bridge, elevated highway, call it what you will.